You know, if you look at it and say, well, it's kind of small, we'll document it and try to group it with other things that we could say there's a pattern in practice that is illegal or immoral, and take that on with the benefit of specific incidents. You know, so there's sort of like and you can actually think of a flow chart. Like, what would you do if this? Now they do that. What about this? What case? And if you can kind of educate your members, keep it simple. Let them feel empowered, like they know what the hell's going on. Not like they're walking into this, you know, legal labyrinth of like, I don't know, you know. Break it bite-sized pieces. You know, bite-sized pieces. In terms of a shift, what we do is this. You know, I meet you at such and such and where. And maybe, you know, we might do a walking shift, and that's basically walking around. If we see the cops, you know, it might be in a high-profile area. I might wear my little T-shirt because I want people to know about Copwatch. I want them to know we're out there, and that's where I'm walking around and doing the outreach. How do you? Now, if somebody says, "Yeah, the cops kicked my ass just yesterday," I might go, "Oh," well, and we have something called an incident report, which you can find in our handbook and online. It's just a little form, but it helps the volunteer know, well, what should I ask and what should I look for? Okay, get the name, get the date, get the contact information, write the narrative of what happened. Oh my God, you got bruises, let me take some pictures of that. Oh, well, let me tell you, okay, well, here's what you can do. And he can look and say, you know what? And sometimes justice is just listening to somebody.
Yeah.
You know, that's people's justice, hearing you deeply and giving you some love behind what you've been through.
Yes.
You know, you want to be careful about not making somebody relive the trauma over and over again. Like, be careful if they're about to launch and tell you this whole story. Say, look, you know, I don't know that I can get you a lawyer or something, or you may want to wait. This sounds like crazy stuff. I'm going to give you this lawyer's number, and I want you to tell the story to them. Or you want to say, I'm going to sit down, type this stuff into the computer, and and that way, you're going to have a written narrative that you can refer to when you file a complaint or your lawsuit or talk to a lawyer. Sometimes people have terrible things happen to them and they're not very articulate about describing what happened to them. And so, you know, those of you who've had the privilege to be well educated might want to go ahead and sit down and help them type it up. And then that's good, because if you're maintaining a database, you've got that, you can keyword it, and then you give them a copy and they can take it to whoever they need to. You know, and whether it's just, again, the satisfaction of having been heard deeply is crucial. But in terms of a shift, so a walking shift, you know, we're going around, and we might be circling around, might be listening to the scanner, might not, because I can't get very far. We've had people do bicycle shifts, so you can cover a larger area. That's okay, but you don't have as much interaction. That's what the police found. The police found that they used to do, you know, the 911, the random patrols, yes, you know, or in the cruiser. That whole notion of community policing, which I'm guessing came. You guys have that? Mm-hmm. They got into that because they said, well, random patrols equals random results. What we need is intelligence. Mm-hmm. What we need is surveillance. We need to, like, who do you know that knows somebody who knows somebody who knows something? And so that's why they got their asses out of the cars. It's not because, you know, they had their come to Jesus moment. They just realized it was more effective to get their information. But we might do a car shift. With car shifts, I do, you know, and what we're doing is we're documenting. Again, I just want to encourage people to figure out how in your organization you're going to make use of that footage. Either delete it and get rid of it, or save it and archive it. You know, and figure out what the trends are in your area. If it's harassment of homeless people or immigration issues, you know, violations of.
How long is a shift?
Well, you know, we do 2 or 3 hours at a time, depending. If it's like a protest, that could be hours and hours. It could be, you know, that can be overnight. Yeah, yeah, that can go on for a while. But yeah, we try 2 or 3 hours. And again, depending on what style you do. If you do like group morale, like you might want to have dinner together first. And then assign people. I tell you what, you take that area, you take that area, you take that, and then come back and everybody kind of share out how'd it go, how did you feel, and again, to express that kind of caring for a volunteer really increases the likelihood that they're going to come back and that they're going to deepen their commitment. Go ahead.
One thing I wanted with your question about what to do when you're in a subway enclosed space and that happens to you, if there's anyone around, you can ask them to either write it down, or if they have a camera, to record what's going on, you know, and so be vocal and be asking other people to help you when you're in certain situations like that, you know.
I don't know. Toronto is really horrible. Police, I mean,
tripping me out.
you're in a subway
Toronto,
space,
I thought Oakland
and
was
it's
rough.
not just one person asking for information status. It's like 4 cops not dressed in badge. Like you don't even know if they're cops. They're just like
Do they have badges?
thugs. They won't show it to you. Sometimes they do, and they're like, I've been in situations where people have been asked their immigration status, and a couple of us have been like, hey, what's going on? Like they've been like, hi, how's it going? And then asking the other person, and then being like, if you talk one more time, you're gonna get arrested for assault. And then they come up to us, and then they come up to us like really, like in front of us, and being like, what do you want? Do you want to be asked your papers, or what are you doing here? You need to get out of here. It's very thuggish, like very much physical interaction when it comes to that.
Sometimes, I mean, and the way that makes us feel when we're photographed and when we're a campaign, a winnable demand that might draw people to your thing is something like just a simple policy. We would like a policy, and we would like a policy that officers have to identify themselves. It actually, in California, it actually is in the penal code that a police officer has to either have a nameplate or a badge number on.
They do here too, technically. They just don't. They just don't.
So do you guys document that? Do you photograph them without those badges? And what would you do with that stuff?
What do you do with it?
We've had, this is out of the G20. There was documentation, I'm part of a group that we demanded the name badge, and there was a lot of pushback, and then it got it. We got the name badges, right?
I mean, a policy that's required.
Yes, and they have to wear a name badge. So at the G20, about many of them, but they identified 90 that had taken off their badges. Quite clear, it was all over the newspapers. And the discipline has been 1 day's pay.
Yeah.
And that's it.
And then people wrote in to say, the police are great.
Yeah. So it's really, it's a different workshop, but it's really about accountability.
Yeah.
And if there is none, and there is no discipline, then they could give a shit, and they get worse and worse. And I think in Toronto, what we have is the result of years and years and years of absolutely no accountability, and that's true in Ontario, I'm sure it's true.
Everywhere.
Are you guys YouTubing them?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of Toronto cops on.
Oh,
Toronto
well,
cop
not
has
Toronto,
told
but-
women that if you don't dress like a slut, you won't get raped.
And it's
That went global.
spawned an international
International. And that cop got promoted, I think, or he
Yeah.
will be promoted any moment.
And that's been true for
So
years.
there's it was the bad apple defense, right?
Right.
So it's really common.
It's only bad apple, but it was a bad day.
He was tired.
Yeah.
If anyone's interested in practical stuff about like what a patrol looks like, someone has that, come talk to me, or talk to Andrew, of course, but talk to me. We can go at like 4 o'clock. I can take you to the office that we have set up.
Nice.
I can show you all our documents and like exactly what a patrol exactly looks like. 4 o'clock, 7 o'clock, tomorrow, whatever. Please come and talk to me. And if there's other people, let them know.
Maybe that could be one of the open sessions.
Yeah.
That's great.
For sure. But something specific about what you said with taking incident reports, something that's maybe the most important lesson that I've learned doing patrols and that you don't think about before you start is not to give people expectations.
That's excellent.
That's really dangerous in terms of people being in your group. If they come in and you're like, we're going to stop police brutality this month, and it doesn't happen, then people get disillusioned and they'll leave. If you go up to people on the street and say, hey, we're doing a Copwatch patrol, here's our Know Your Rights card. If you show this to the cops, you'll never get in trouble. It's like, that person will, they'll get in trouble. They might, get brutalized more so than they would otherwise. And when they see you next week and they say, hey, your card didn't work, I got a black eye, then they're going to be pissed at you, and word's going to spread, and you're going to get a bad reputation for your group. So when you take an incident report or you talk to someone on the street and they tell you that they got beat up, you have to tell them, okay, here's our card. These are what your rights should be. The police may not respect your rights. So try to assert these as best you can, but the police won't respect that. So you have to also use common sense and keep yourself safe as best you can.
Yes.
So that's something that's super important when you're actually cop watching.